You are nothing but spare parts for your brother. My father said that right before he punched me in the face. I crashed into the glass coffee table, tasting blood and feeling the room spin. Just seconds earlier, he had slid a fake confession letter across his desk. He gave me a choice. Sign it and go to prison for the $850,000 my brother Jonas stole. Or they would frame me for it anyway. Now, lying in the broken glass, I looked up at Jonas. He was not horrified. He was just annoyed that my blood was dripping on the rug. I made a choice in that split second that changed everything. Before I tell you what I did with the blood on my face, drop a comment. Where are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? I walked into the adjoining bathroom and locked the door. My hands were not shaking. That was the first thing I noticed. The adrenaline did not make me flighty. It made me cold. I turned on the harsh vanity lights and looked at the woman in the mirror. The bruise was already blooming across my cheekbone, a violent shade of purple against my pale skin. My lip was split, a jagged red line leaking onto my chin. Most people would be crying right now. Most people would be scrambling to call 911, screaming for help, running out the front door. But I was not most people. I was a Sterling. I reached into my pocket and pulled out my phone. I did not dial the police. Instead, I opened the camera app. I held the phone steady, framing the injury in the unforgiving light. Click. Front profile. Click. Side profile. Click. A close-up of the split lip. Then I switched to video. I stated the date, the time, and the location in a whisper-quiet voice. Leonard Sterling assaulted me in his home office after attempting to coerce me into signing a fraudulent confession. I saved the files and immediately uploaded them to a secure cloud server that neither my father nor my brother knew existed. People on the outside always ask why victims do not just leave immediately. They think staying is a sign of weakness, or fear, or brainwashing. They call it battered woman syndrome, or trauma bonding. But that is too simple. They do not understand the trap of normalized cruelty. When you grow up in a house where love is conditional, and violence is just a negotiation tactic, you do not panic when you get hit. You calculate. You do not see a fist. You see leverage. I looked at the blood on my face and I did not see pain. I saw currency. If I left now, if I called the police, Leonard would get a simple assault charge. He would pay a fine. Maybe get probation. He would spin a story about his hysterical daughter attacking him. He had the money and the connections to make a bruise disappear. But I did not want a misdemeanor. I wanted a felony. I wanted asset forfeiture. I wanted them to lose the one thing they loved more than control. Their money. I remembered when I was 10 years old, sitting at the kitchen table while Leonard screamed at me for getting a B in math. He told me I was useless, that Jonas was the only one with a future. He broke my favorite pencil box against the wall. I learned then that tears only made him stronger. Silence made him careless. I leaned over the sink. I did not wash the blood off. I let it dry there, stark and accusing. I needed them to see it. I needed them to think they had broken me. If I walked back out there clean, they would be suspicious. But if I walked out there wearing the evidence of their cruelty, they would get arrogant. They would think I was defeated, and arrogant men make mistakes. I checked my pupils. No concussion. Good. I needed my mind sharp. I smoothed my blouse, took a deep breath, and unlocked the door. I was not going out there to surrender. I was going out there to close the deal. I opened the heavy oak door and stepped back into the study. The air was still stale with the scent of cigar smoke and expensive scotch. Jonas was back in his chair, swirling an amber liquid in a crystal glass, looking bored. Leonard was wiping his hand with a handkerchief, likely checking for bruises on his own knuckles. When they saw me, they stopped. They expected tears. They expected me to be trembling, holding a tissue to my face, begging for mercy. Instead, I stood there with the blood drying in a dark streak down my chin, staring at them with eyes that were absolute zero. "Did you clean yourself up?" Leonard asked, his voice dripping with disdain. "You look like a street brawler." "I am fine," I said, sitting in the leather chair opposite him. I did not wipe the blood. I wanted them to look at it. I wanted it to be the focal point of the negotiation. "I thought about your offer." "It was not an offer, Selena," Jonas sneered. "It was an instruction. Sign the confession, take the 5 years, and when you get out, maybe we will give you a stipend. If you do not, we release the logs using your old admin credentials, and you go away for 20. I will sign it," I said. The tension in the room snapped. Leonard leaned back, a smug smile spreading across his face. He thought he had won. He thought violence had done its job. "Smart girl. I knew you would come around. You always do what is best for the family." "But," I interrupted, my voice cutting through his victory lap, "if I sign that paper today, You are both dead in the water, within 6 months. Leonard frowned. What are you talking about? Do you think the IRS just accepts a confession for nearly $1 million of fraud and walks away? I leaned forward. A confession that size triggers an automatic forensic audit of the entire company history. They do not just look at the missing $850,000. They look at everything. The shell companies. The offshore leaks. The crypto wallets Jonas thinks he hid. I looked at Jonas. His face went pale. He had not thought that far ahead. He never did. He played checkers. I played four-dimensional chess. They will strip the company, I continued, keeping my tone clinically detached. They will seize the house, the cars, and the accounts. I go to prison for the fraud, sure, but you two go to prison for the cover-up and the tax evasion. We all lose. So what do you suggest? Leonard asked, his eyes narrowing. He was listening now. Not as a father, but as a predator, sensing a trap. We need to inoculate the assets before I sign. I lied. We need to move the liquidity and the hidden equity into a blind trust that the audit cannot touch. Once the money is safe, then I sign the confession. The feds get their scapegoat, you keep the fortune. And how do we do that? Jonas asked, greedy desperation creeping into his voice. Our usual guys will not touch us right now. I know a specialist, I said. His name is Marcus. He handles crisis management for distressed firms. He can structure a shelter in 48 hours. He is expensive, and he is not entirely legal, but he is the best. Leonard studied me. He was looking for the angle. He was looking for the betrayal. But he could not see past his own ego. He saw a daughter who had spent 10 years cleaning up their messes. He saw a battered woman trying to salvage some goodwill before she went to jail. He did not see the executioner. Call him, Leonard said. Get him here on Thursday. If he can secure the assets, you sign the confession on Friday. Agreed, I said. I stood up. I did not say goodbye. I walked out of the study, feeling their eyes on my back. They thought I was saving their money. They had no idea I was bringing in the man who would help them sign it all away. 2 days later, I sat across from Marcus in a windowless conference room in downtown Chicago. Marcus was not a Fed. He was not a cop. He was a corporate attorney who specialized in aggressive asset recovery. In my line of work, you meet two kinds of lawyers. The ones who frame the certificates on their wall, and the ones who use the frame to bludgeon the opposition. Marcus was the latter. You look like hell, Selena, he said, sliding a coffee across the table. He did not ask about the bruise. He knew better. I feel focused, I replied. Do you have the paperwork? He tapped a thin file folder. It is all here, but I need you to be sure about this. Once we play this card, there is no folding. You are baiting them into federal territory. I am sure, I said. Walk me through the trap. Marcus opened the folder. It is a standard IRS form, Form 8832, coupled with a declaration of beneficial ownership. To the untrained eye, it looks like a tax shelter. It looks like we are reclassifying the stolen funds as retroactive executive bonuses and moving them into a blind trust to shield them from the audit. He pointed to the signature line. But here is the catch, he continued, a shark-like grin appearing. To claim the shelter, they have to prove the money is theirs. They have to explicitly list every shell company, every crypto wallet, and every offshore account, and sign a sworn affidavit that they, Leonard and Jonas Sterling, are the sole beneficiaries. I looked at the document. It was beautiful in its simplicity. It was a Trojan horse made of paper. If they sign this, I said, they are not just admitting to the fraud. They are piercing their own corporate veil. They are stripping away the liability protection of the LLCs. Exactly, Marcus said. They think they are signing a document to keep the money safe from the auditors. In reality, they are handing the government a signed confession that says, yes, I stole this, and here is exactly where I put it. It was the perfect trap for a narcissist. Leonard could not stand the idea of anyone else owning his fortune. He would claim it to save it, not realizing that claiming it was the crime. He would sign his own death warrant with a gold pen because he was too arrogant to believe he could be caught. You have to sell it, Marcus, I said. They cannot think you are eager. If you look like you want their business, they will get suspicious. Leonard only trusts people who treat him like he is dangerous. Do not worry, Marcus adjusted his tie. I am not going to ask for their business. I am going to tell them I do not want it. I am going to tell them their money is too dirty for me to touch unless they verify the origin. I will make them beg me to take it. I leaned back. I remembered all the times Leonard had lectured me about risk management while gambling away our college funds. He thought he was a titan of industry. He was just a thief with a good tailor. We meet them tomorrow at 10, I said. Do you have the team ready? Civil asset forfeiture agents are on standby, Marcus confirmed. The moment the ink is dry, we digitally file the declaration. The freeze order hits their accounts in seconds. The insurance investigators walk in 5 minutes later. I picked up the file. It felt heavy. Not with paper, but with justice. "Let's go," I said. I want to see the look on his face when his kingdom turns to dust. The boardroom Marcus had rented was a glass cage suspended 40 floors above the city. It smelled of lemon polish and billable hours. I sat at the far end of the long granite table, my hands folded on my lap to hide the slight tremor. Marcus sat at the head, looking every inch the high-priced predator in a bespoke suit that cost more than my car. When Leonard and Jonas walked in, they did not look like men facing federal prison. They looked like kings arriving to survey a new province. Leonard threw his coat on a chair without looking to see if anyone would catch it. Jonas was already on his phone, likely checking crypto prices that were plummeting. "Let's make this quick," Leonard said, not bothering to sit. "We have a shareholders meeting at 2. I want the assets sheltered by noon." Marcus did not blink. He did not even look up from the file in front of him. He just slid the papers back across the table toward Leonard. "Then you are in the wrong room," Marcus said, his voice bored. "I cannot help you." The silence that followed was heavy. Jonas looked up from his phone. "Excuse me?" "I reviewed your preliminary financials," Marcus said, tapping the folder. "They are too clean. You have these listed as operating losses and bad vendor debt. If that is true, this is just a failing business. I do not work with failing businesses. I work with distressed assets. I work with money that needs to disappear because it was never supposed to exist." He stood up and buttoned his jacket. "If you did not steal it, I cannot hide it. I am not an accountant. I am a cleaner. Good luck with the audit." It was a masterclass in psychological manipulation. He challenged their egos. He told 2 narcissists they were not dangerous enough to be worth his time. "Sit down," Leonard barked. The mask of the legitimate businessman fell away instantly. "You want to know where the money came from? Fine." Leonard leaned over the table, his eyes gleaming with the pride of a man who thought he had outsmarted the system. "It is not bad debt. It is liquidity we pulled from the pension fund and the vendor retainers. We moved it through 3 shell companies to wash it. It is ours. We just need to park it somewhere the IRS will not look for 6 months. So, it is fraud," Marcus said, sitting back down. "Explicitly. It is asset reallocation," Jonas corrected, smirking. "We just borrowed it. We will put it back when the market turns." "Great," Marcus said. He pulled a new document from his briefcase. "Then we can do business. But I need to know exactly what I am protecting. This is a declaration of beneficial ownership. It tells the IRS that these shell companies belong to you, which allows me to legally move them into a blind trust under my control. If you do not claim them, I cannot move them. It was the lie that would kill them." Marcus was telling them that to hide the crime, they had to claim the crime. Leonard picked up the gold fountain pen he carried everywhere, a symbol of his status. He looked at the document. He looked at me. For a second, I thought he saw the trap. His eyes narrowed. He was a predator, and he sensed a shift in the wind. "Wait," Leonard said. He looked at Jonas. "The physical ledger. The black book. Where is it?" "It is in the safe in the car," Jonas said. "In the parking garage." "Go get it," Leonard ordered. "If we are moving the digital assets, I want the physical records handed over to Marcus too. I do not want anything left in the office when the auditors come." "Now?" Jonas complained. "Now," Leonard shouted. "Go!" Jonas rolled his eyes, grabbed his keys, and walked out of the room. The heavy glass door clicked shut. It was just me, Marcus, and the man who had terrorized me for 29 years. Leonard looked back at the paper. He uncapped the pen. I watched him with a strange detachment. Psychologists talk about the delusion of power in an empty wallet. It is a specific form of madness that affects men like my father. They believe that their signature is a weapon. They believe that the rules of gravity and law do not apply to them because they are special. Leonard was not signing this document because he was stupid. He was signing it because he was arrogant. He genuinely believed that he could write his name on a confession and simply will it to be a shield. He thought he was the smartest man in the room, right up until the moment the ink touched the page. "Do you want to be right, Dad?" I asked softly. "Or do you want to be rich?" He sneered at me. "I am always both." He signed his name with a flourish. Leonard Sterling. He put the pen down and smiled at me. It was the smile of a wolf who thinks he just locked the sheep pen. He did not know he was the one inside the cage. Marcus picked up the document. He did not smile. He did not offer a handshake. He did not say, "Pleasure doing business with you." He simply scanned the signature, verified the notary stamp he had just applied, and closed the folder. Then, he opened his laptop. What are you doing? Leonard asked, impatient now that the work was done. Initiate the transfer. I want that money offshore before the market closes. I am not initiating a transfer, Leonard, Marcus said. His voice had changed. The hungry, morally flexible lawyer was gone. In his place was a man who looked like he was taking out the trash. I am filing a suspicious activity report with the state prosecutor's office and the insurance bonding commission, and I am attaching your signed confession as Exhibit A. Leonard blinked. He looked at me, then back at Marcus. He did not understand. His brain could not process the shift. It was like watching a man try to read a map in a language he did not speak. What? Leonard whispered. Marcus hit the enter key. The large presentation screen behind him, which had been displaying the logo of the fake shell company, flickered. It changed to the seal of the State Department of Justice. You just admitted to $850,000 of embezzlement and signed a declaration of ownership for illegal assets, Marcus said. Under the terms of your company's insurance bond, that is an immediate default. The assets are not being moved to a trust. They are being frozen by the state. The heavy double doors at the back of the room opened. Leonard spun around in his chair. He expected Jonas. He probably expected Jonas to come back with the physical ledger and fix this misunderstanding. But Jonas was not there. Instead, 4 men in gray suits walked in. They were not SWAT. They did not kick down the doors or scream instructions. They were quieter. And somehow scarier. They were civil asset forfeiture agents and insurance investigators. They carried clipboards, not rifles. They did not want Leonard's life. They wanted his lifestyle. One of the agents placed a piece of paper in front of Leonard. Mr. Sterling, the agent said, this is a seizure order for all accounts listed in the document you just signed. Your personal assets have been frozen pending a federal audit. Please place your phone on the table. Leonard's phone pinged. Then it pinged again. And again. Notification after notification. Account frozen. Card declined. Transfer rejected. Leonard looked at the phone, then at me. His face was not red anymore. It was gray. It was the color of old ash. Selena, he croaked. Fix this. I stood up. My legs felt solid. For the first time in my life, I was not afraid of him. I looked at the man who had punched me, belittled me, and tried to sell me out to save his own skin. I looked at the gold pen lying on the table, the weapon he had used to sign his own destruction. I did fix it, Dad, I said. I balanced the books. Where is Jonas? Leonard stood up, looking around frantically. Jonas, get in here. But Jonas was gone. The chair next to him was empty. Leonard was alone. The realization hit him like a physical blow. The golden child was not there to save him. The spare part was the one holding the match. I watched his hands. They were shaking. The tremor started in his fingers and worked its way up his arms until his whole body was vibrating with the frequency of total ruin. He reached for me, but an agent stepped in between us. We need you to come with us, sir, the agent said. Leonard did not scream. He did not fight. He just deflated. The arrogance that had held him upright for 60 years evaporated, leaving behind a small, frightened old man. As they let him out, he looked back at the document on the table. He was not looking at the numbers. He was looking at his own signature. He finally understood. He had not been caught because he was careless. He had applied for the position of inmate. I waited until they took Leonard down the freight elevator. Marcus stayed behind to hand over the digital evidence to the investigators. I needed air. I needed to be away from the smell of lemon polish and betrayal. I took the main elevator down to the parking garage. My car was parked on the 3rd level, deep in the shadows of a concrete pillar. It was quiet down there. The air was cool and smelled of gasoline and dust. I walked toward my sedan, my heels clicking on the concrete, the sound echoing in the emptiness. I was exhausted. My cheek throbbed where the bruise was hidden under concealer. But I was relieved. It was over. Leonard was in custody. The money was recovered. I reached into my purse for my keys. I did not see him until I was right at the driver's side door. You bitch! The scream came from the darkness behind the pillar. Jonas. He had not left. He had gone down to the car to get the ledger, just like Leonard asked, but he must have seen the unmarked police cars blocking the exits. He must have seen the lights reflecting off the glass lobby doors. He knew it was a trap. And instead of running, he had waited. He lunged at me. He was not wearing his suit jacket. His shirt was torn. In his hand, he gripped a heavy iron tire iron. Give it to me, he screamed, his eyes wild and bloodshot. Give me the drive. I know you have the backups. He did not want to kill me. He wanted the evidence. He thought if he destroyed the laptop in my bag, he could still save himself. He swung the tire iron. I threw myself backward, dodging the blow. The iron smashed into my driver's side window, shattering the glass. Shards rained down on the seat. You ruined everything, Jonas yelled, grabbing a handful of my hair, the same way Leonard had. He yanked me toward him, raising the iron again. I am not going to jail because of you. The pain in my scalp was blinding. It flashed me back to the study, to the helpless feeling of being dragged, but I was not helpless anymore. I had prepared for this. I had prepared for every variable, including the violent stupidity of my brother. I did not pull away. I stepped into his space. I reached into my coat pocket and pulled out the high-voltage taser I had bought the day after the punch. I jammed it into his ribs and pulled the trigger. The crackle of electricity was louder than his scream. Jonas convulsed, his muscles seizing. The tire iron clattered to the concrete. He dropped to his knees, then fell sideways, twitching and groaning. I told you. Jonas. I stood over him, my breath coming in sharp gasps. I am not spare parts. I am the upgrade. The stairwell door burst open. Federal agents. Drop it. The civil forfeiture team, who had been securing the perimeter, had heard the glass break. They swarmed us, guns drawn. I dropped the taser and put my hands up. They saw Jonas on the ground, the tire iron next to him, and the shattered window. They did not need an explanation. They cuffed him while he was still drooling on the pavement. 3 months later, I sat on the balcony of my new apartment. It was small, but it was quiet. No soundproof studies. No screaming. I opened my laptop to check the news. The headline was still circulating in the business section. Sterling Empire collapses in fraud scandal. Leonard was in federal custody, denied bail because of the flight risk established by the Cayman accounts I had uncovered. He was facing 20 years. Jonas was in the county lockup, facing additional charges for assault with a deadly weapon. And Sabrina? I scrolled down. There was a blurb in the society pages. Socialite files for divorce amidst scandal. She had filed the morning the assets were seized. She took the jewelry, the clothes, and whatever cash she could hide, and left Jonas with a court-appointed public defender. The rats were not just fleeing the ship. They were eating each other. I closed the browser. I opened my contact list on my phone. I scrolled down to the group labeled Family, Leonard, Jonas, Sabrina. I did not feel sad. I did not feel guilty. I felt the cool breeze on my face. I touched my cheek. The bruise was gone. The skin was smooth. I pressed Elite Group. The names vanished. They told me I was nothing without them. They said I was just a tool to be used and discarded. They were wrong. I was not the tool. I was the mechanic. And when the engine is broken beyond repair, you do not fix it. You scrap it. I stood up and looked out at the city lights. I had burned the bridge, yes. But the fire lit my way forward.